Faber, and I'm a senior product developer for the IMS database utilities. And today we're going to talk about how our utilities are taking advantage of managed ACBs. The first thing I would like to discuss is kind of the history of managed ACBs, and then a quick little dive into how they are implemented. And then finally, we'll talk about how the database utilities use them. So let's begin. Go ahead and advance the slide. And so the first thing I'll talk about is the way that this system works is most people are familiar that IMS uses 3 control blocks: DVDs, PSBs, and ACBs. And the way that you would use them is first you would do a DVD gen, followed by PSB gen, and then finally you would do an ACB gen. And after you created those, you would use the IMS DD to point to your DVDs, PSBs, or IMS ACB to point to your ACB lives. And IMS online system would use your ACB live, and you would be able, and the way you would do changes with that would be with online change, you would do a swap from ACB live A to B and vice versa. And then you would be able to do those kind of changes. And if you went, next slide, please. In IMS 12, IBM introduced the catalog. And what the catalog is, it's a p-high-dam database with a secondary index. And it would be populated with the control blocks, the DVD, PSB, ACB, and then from there it would be, you could access data information such as segment info, fields, those kind of things. But you would still be using the ACB live for your databases. You would still use the IMS DD, and you would still have ACB live determine whether you want that to be active, which a library A or B. And so from there, really, you're still using the original ACB live, but the trend heading towards catalog started with IMS 12. Next slide, please. And then IMS 14 introduced managed ACBs. And so what managed ACBs is, it took the concept of putting these control blocks into this LDB data set and expanded on it. So you could still do PSB gens, DVD gens, but now they also introduced the ability to use SQL with DDL. And so that let the user do SQL-like queries to create databases, create PSBs, which are called program views with the catalog. And from there, you would be able to have the blocks you need to create the ACB for the IMS. Now, at this point, you can still do an ACB gen, but the ACB gen also, they've added a function called catalog populate. And what this will do is it automatically populates the catalog with your ACB and puts it into what they call the staging library. And so the staging library is all of your pending changes that you do not necessarily want to commit immediately, but you want to preview them, see how they work, and see whether they function the way you expect, things like that. And so with managed ACBs, the ACB lib A and B are no longer used. Instead, you have the directory, and the active directory will have all the DVDs that IMS will use. And the way that that would be processed, so once the database or PSB change has been moved into the staging library, if you want to harden that into the Active Directory, you would do a type 2 import command, import it into the catalog, and that change would be hardened into the Active Directory datasets. And once that is done, then they would be good to go. So next slide, please. And the way these catalogs can be defined, you can define them. You can have multiple catalogs sharing with an IMS plex, or you can have a catalog for each IMS. And using multiple catalogs on the same LPAR, you can do this through catalog aliases. And so I'll show how that can be defined. And you can use a combination of managed or ACB libs, depending on how you have your DFS DF macro defined. And when these are defined, the high-level qualifier is set to be the same for catalog, directory, and the bootstrap dataset. So there's a lot of different options that you can have to define your IMS now with managed ACBs. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, you can use the DFS DF member to define multiple IMSs using the alias keyword. And the default for this is DFSC, but you can use any 4 character string to define your alias. And then the other main field in this proc is the ACB management field, and you can have either ACB lib in there, or you can have catalog in there, and that lets the IMS know whether to use managed ACBs or not. Next slide, please. And there's another thing we can do to let our utilities know, because the main changes with our utilities is the way we identify whether there is managed ACBs or not. And one way you can do that is by creating a catalog exit. And in this case, DFS3 CDX0. And using this exit will let you can define multiple catalogs with aliases and specify the parameters for them. And so if you have a Plex, you want to use multiple ACBs, multiple catalogs, they can all be defined here in the exit. And if the exit finds one of these catalog entries, one of these databases, datasets, then it'll go ahead and process as managed ACBs. Next slide, please. And the unique thing about the catalog dataset, since we mentioned before, it is a p-HIDAM. It is the only HowDB that doesn't have to be defined in DBRC. However, it is still recommended to do so. And so here's an example of us defining an alias in DBRC. And then some examples just of what the name is. If you can define multiple catalog databases in DBRC, But if there is only one, then you can use the change recon command. If there's multiple catalogs, then it should not be named. Next slide, please. Finally, there's the MDA member. So you can specify the high-level qualifier for the datasets, including the base strap dataset and this active directory datasets and the staging directory datasets. And a new MDA type was introduced for this, cat DSHLQ, and that is specifically for the catalog. And so in this example, we've got a couple with aliases and also DFS-CD000, which if you do not define an alias, that is what the catalog will be defined as. Next slide, please. Now, what does this all mean for our utilities? Now, for our utilities, we have two methods to activate managed ACBs. The preferred method is for a user exit to be defined and have the exit in your step log. This would allow for in the same directory as other user exits that you might have. And this would allow for the JCL to stay the same. You don't have to make any changes to it at that point. And we mentioned that the IMS managed MACB Y flag tells our product to use managed ACBs. And as of RSL 2310, which was released in October, we set that default as yes in preparation for the change in 2025 to permanent managed ACBs. And so so other options, if you have an older module, DLIG set 0, which is our options module, you can reassemble it using IMS MACB equal Y to set that as well. If you don't want to use an exit, the other option is to specify DSF DF equals, and then the last three characters of your macro or proc name in the exec parameter list. This is another method to tell the job that we are using managed ACBs. This will point to that proc that I showed previously that showed the definition of the alias, showed the definition of whether this was using managed ACBs or ACB lib. And that is how it will select which catalog to use. Next slide, please. If IMS MACB Y is used and neither method is available, we still will allow the use of the IMS DD. So we will still, as a last resort, we will use the DVD lib, PSB lib. And some quick tips about if the exit's present, there is a message that is displayed that the user exit's called, what the name is, and the exit routine. And we also display a message saying that the utility is running under IMS managed ACBs. And then finally, we show the high-level qualifier for the catalog that we're using, so that way you can verify which catalog is being used. And then next, we just have some statements that show how the parameter list is defined. For PCP and SIU, we do a little bit differently compared to the other utilities, and for that we just do parm equals, and then as you see there, and then It's just basically make sure DFS, DF is at the end of the parameter string. And also we're going to make a change in the JCL to remove the IMS DD. So that way you don't need, so it's not required for the IMS DD to be there. Let's see, is there one more slide after this one? Okay. This one is just some more product enhancements that we have. And one of the ones I'm actually looking forward to is actually this new DBD stage. And what new DBD stage will do is, say you want to make a database change, but you want that change to be implemented during a reorg, which if you're doing that currently with a IMS DD, you would specify an old DBD live with your change, and then you can do a reorg, that makes the change. And so with the catalog, we had to come up with a similar approach. And so what we came up with is what we'll do is if a new DBD stage is performed during the load process, we'll go ahead and use the DBD from stage, and the unload will be from the active directory. And so this will allow reorgs to be a lot simpler. And if you have a product like Delta, once the change is made, we can issue an import command to go ahead and move that DBD change from staging to active without any further user intervention. And then another change where we implemented is being able to use Database Integrity Plus to use it to compare your DBD lib with your directories, so you can look and see, did my move from DBD lib to directory, did it come in properly to the directory? Meaning, say, is your DBD the same? Is there something changed? And if there is something changed, what's changed? And you can use the compare to tell that. And so also with Database Integrity Plus, we've added the ability to compare with the directory. And so all the keywords that we have, like compare and cross-reference and other ones, before where you would specify either IMS or DBD lib or ACB lib, you can also now specify the directory. And not only you can specify the directory, you can specify whether to use active or staging. So that way, if you want to compare your active versus staging to make sure it's the change that you want to make, our tool will show that for you. And then also for advisor, made a change to allow the cat bootstrap dataset to be defined with cat BSDS. And the cat and the bootstrap dataset shows the DSNs for the active staging datasets. Next slide, please. And here, I'm going to actually take control for just a second, because what I want to do real quick is I want to show an example of the new DBD keyword. So I'm going to take control here real quick. And here we go. So some things I wanted to show is the new DVD keyword. Sample, in this case, new DVD stage. So we're going to be using staging library. And so here's an example of the keywords showing which that the managed ACBs are being used, and also that what high-level qualifier we're using for the directory. So it can be validated that the one that is wanted is picked up. And so you can see in this, we have an example where we are making a change. And so we go ahead and the process works the same as before. But we also have some, let's see. And so we also added this new option here. And what this one just says is, where is the new DVD definition coming from? And the default's going to be active. Because 9 times out of 10, when a reorg's being run, there's not going to be a change. So active will be the default. But specify new DVD, then you can tell that we're going to be getting the definition from stage. And the new keyword new DVD works in multiple utilities. It's not just reorg, it's pointer checker, unload, reload. And that will actually be coming out with our next release, which will be in January. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and give control back to Yogesh. Yogesh, do you want to go ahead and take control back?
So, Josh, I have one question before Yogesh starts his
Sure.
session. Let's consider a situation today when we are using DVD Live and ACB Live environment. And if somebody needs to make any schema changes to the DVD, so what they do is they make changes to the DVD source and they do the DVD gen, and then they will do the ACB gen. And once they have the control blocks in the ACB Live, today they have a flexibility to put that control blocks in almost any temporary library, right? And then they can run unload and reload and verify, if changes are good. And if they are happy, they can proceed with the next steps of moving those control blocks into inactive library and then maybe use online change or Delta products to activate the changes. But today, in this new world, from IMS standpoint, the staging directory dataset and active directory datasets, they are almost, fixed. You cannot use any temporary staging library or active library, right? So that kind of thing will change the way customers will approach making DBD schema changes. Any suggestions or feedback on that? What do you?
I mean, it kind of actually streamlines the process, because when you do your ACB gen now or with managed ACBs, it'll go into staging by default.
That's
And
common
so,
for everyone.
and that's common for everyone. And so when you do, so you have this one repository instead of having potentially several different temporary ACB libs. And so the change is queued up. When the change is in staging, nothing is using it at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, if you say you do that, and then so you move your change to staging, and you want to look at it, you can do an example as a decode. Do a decode, look at the change, see if it's the change you want it to make. And once you verify the change, then you can run the reorg, and it'll make the change with new DVD stage, and it'll reorganize the database with that change. And at that point, if it turns out it doesn't do what you would expect, you would just restore the database. and the definition will still be inactive. So there will be no issue there. So you would
Yeah,
just have
but it
to.
will create multiple
Sure.
entries in the catalog, right? Which needs to be purged later on, those which are
Right.
unneeded.
Right. Because each one will have its own version, its own timestamps every time you add a new one to staging. So, correct. And so if you want to reference a previous change, you can use dbver to reference a previous change.
Mhm. And also, Josh, like somebody is making a database schema level change. Today we can see the entire DBD source, right? But in the
Mhm.
DDL world, you have to write alter statements, and you don't have the entire DBD source or equivalent in front of you. So maybe I wonder, like, when people will adopt DDL as a one-time process, they have to convert all their DBD source or control blocks into equivalent DDL statements. So that way they can view and then see, okay, what kind of changes they need to make and build alter statements accordingly. So do we
Oh,
offer anything which can convert these stuff like DBD source or stuff in the directory or ACB live into DDL equivalent form, which will make things easier for customer?
yes. Yes, we do. We actually, the Database Integrity Plus product has an option, and the you can do it in Visor as well. There's an option to say DDL yes. And what it'll do is it'll take your current DVD that you have in DVD Live, and you can issue a decode. And so what it'll do at the same time as issue the DVD source decoded from the DVD Live member, it can also convert it into DDL
Yeah.
that can be used and implemented into the catalog right away.
Yeah.
So we do
Okay.
have that ability
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think at some stage everybody will need it because they need to have the equivalent DDL statements for everything which exists on the uh, assembler macros on the DVD source and PHP source side. So I think that's going to be a very important feature.
Yeah. And that actually is out now as well.
Okay.
Should mention that is actually available today. The new DBD keyword will be available in the next RSL, which is in January.
Thanks, Josh.
So, with that, I'll go ahead and give the floor to Yogesh.
Thank you, Josh. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. Now we will see how managed ACB is implemented in backup and recovery products. So I'm moving to next slide. So as most of you must be aware that we provide like 4 products: Image Copy Plus, then we have Change Accumulation Plus, and Recovery Plus. And one more product where currently we are not supporting managed ACB, which is Recovery Manager. So as you see, Image Copy Plus takes image copies with very little or no downtime. There are different types of image copies which our product can take. Then we have Change Accumulation Plus, which consolidates all the change records for a particular database, and it creates a single change accumulation record, and which would be useful for taking a recovery. Then in Recovery Plus, we have different types of recoveries which we take, like standard recovery or roll forward, or disaster recovery, or point in time recovery. So for all these products, managed ACB is currently enabled. Apart from this, We also have one functionality in Recovery Plus, which is archive image copy. So this is the special feature which is part of Recovery Plus for IMS. So this feature allows you to restore database from an older image copy, irrespective of changes in the database definitions. So we will see that in detail, how archive image copy is created and how we have implemented managed ACB in archive image copy process. So as Josh explained earlier, our backup and recovery products also works in a similar way how database utilities products are implemented. So we have provision that you can generate DBD and PSBs, and once you do the ACB generation, then you can catalog populate the utility using populate utility DFS3 UACB. So you can populate your catalog using that. And then once it goes to directory, our backup and recovery utilities can read through managed ACB mode. So in similar way, you can also implement or populate your catalog and directory using DDLs. So as it is covered earlier that we can use DFS3 CDX0 user exit, or you can use your DFS DF proclib member to enable managed ACBs. Then we also have, user can also use BMC global keyword, which is IMS MACBY in BMC setup DD statement, and the default value for the same in DLIG set 0 is set to yes in October 23 release. So apart from this, user can also provide information to BRI utilities to find the IMS catalog dataset by using an MDA member mapping the catalog bootstrap dataset, or from the catalog database definitions which are defined in the recon datasets. So all our products which I talked about, like image copy, recovery, and change accumulation plus, works exactly in a similar way that database utilities products are worked. There is a little bit difference for archive image copy. So we'll cover archive image copy, what it is. So this features of archive image copy includes that user can specify databases or CA groups or DBDS group for archive creation. Then we can user can also provide models for the output archive datasets. Then all other things will be taken care by archive image copy. So if you see a second feature, that the non-disruptive backup creation, that means the traditional methods which we were using, that requires some downtime, but this technique creates consistent and point in time backups without any downtime. Then automatic discovery of recovery assets. This is one of the important feature this utility provides. That system identifies and saves necessary recovery assets for quick restoration. And it is essential for managing backups of many databases simultaneously. So we'll see this in detail, and it also supports managed ACB environments. So talking about creating archive image copy, so in creation, we can create archive image copy dataset. So this is created as an output of a special point in time recovery. It is a batch image copy. Then we also record the information, like it captures all database definitions, DVRC definitions, then dynamic allocation information like AMS PDS. And it also records saving exit programs, like retains necessary exit programs such as partition selection exit or randomizer routine. So we'll see how it does. So this diagram explains uh, once user creates or once we get the request to create archive image copy for one or more databases, it takes input as your IC which is created, then your CAs and your IMS logs. Then you can use your BMC Recovery Plus utility with type run as archive IC. And we also get the inputs from recons. Then IMS catalog, if you have managed ACB enabled, or from IMS DBDlib, you can take the DVD information, or PSB. This is optional. You can also provide which PSBs needs to be considered, and if it needs to be taken from catalog. The output is like resource dataset. Resource dataset basically it is a PDS with the record format U, and it stores all DVD load modules from the DBDlib. And in managed ACB mode, instead of DVD load modules, here all the DDLs are recorded. Then you can also create resource dataset dynamically, or you can pre-allocate the same. So apart from that, we create directory dataset. So this is predefined VZM KSDS dataset. And basically it is indexed to all different archive image copies which are created. It records all archive image copies information with the timestamp. And there is one more utility which we provide, which is called as ARU DUTIL. So this utility basically used to fetch all the recorded information of archive image copies with the timestamp. And then we have our output, which contains like for requested databases, you get the multiple archive image copies. So this is one of the archive image copy creation example, and this is with the managed ACBs. So here, as I said earlier, that either you can use exit or proclib. So this example tells you that the proclib and DFS-DF parameter is used to enable the managed ACB. So basically this type run archive IC keyword, as mentioned here, is used to create archive image copies for database DBRC001 and DBRC-E10, as mentioned in this particular example. And then you also have models which you can specify, and accordingly it would allocate your RSR file. So for example, RSR file is allocated using RSR model 1, and output data sets are dynamically allocated using ICD RSD model, which is specified over here. Then next step is change ACL step. So here what we are doing is we restore DBDlib members or DDL definitions in case of managed ACB environment. Then restore exit programs, then AMS PDS definition members and DBRC definition members. And we can also optionally restore PSB lib members. And it creates recovery JCL, which does like allocate, then register databases to DBRC, then recover databases, and then rebuild indexes. So we'll see that how this JCL is created. And then in managed ACB environment, it generates JCL steps to populate and import DDLs to the active catalog. So in case of managed ACB, we get a different generated JCL, and in case of DBDlib environment, we get a different type of recovery JCL. So this is the change JCL step. So we'll get the request to restore database archive. So we'll see whether all recovery assets are available. So if it is available, then we will go ahead and we will re-establish runtime environment using resource library and directory. So whatever we have done in the archive IC creation process, so we'll use those resource data sets and directory data set, and then we will create like whatever as per environment, in which environment you are running, we can build the DBDs or IMS catalog with DDLs, then build PSBs and IMS catalog, and restore exit programs. And it also does, I mean, it will generate the DBRC definition, and plus it would generate the IDCAMS definition. And one more artifact it would generate, which is actual recovery JCL. So which will recover your image copy. So this is about JNJCL step, and this is your generated recovery JCL step. So here we will have like allocate the database dataset using dynamic allocation. Then these are the steps basically which are created once your generated recovery JCL is created. So in case of managed ACB, we generate extra steps like for pop catalog and import, populate DDL statements and import stage components to the catalog before DB recovery step. So this is done only in case of managed ACP, because in other normal DB environment, this is not required. So then init DB0 step we have, which is used to register all the databases to DBRC. Then DB recover is the actual recovery step where it recovers all the databases using archive image copy. And then if there are any indexes, then it would rebuild primary and secondary indexes and ILDSs for HALDBs. So this is the recovery step. So so we have the input like from archive directory dataset, then archive IC datasets, then we have the DBDlib or IMS catalog or PSBlib or corresponding IMS catalog definitions, and then exit programs. So whatever we have saved at the time of creation of archive image copy, we are using it in the recovery. So the similar type of environment is created. Uh, and then actual recovery is executed. So this is the recovery step. So this is the third step. So as I explained, first we create the archive image copy, then we change JCL it, then third step is actual recovery. So generated JCL by change JCL is submitted at this step. And then we'll get all recovered output data sets, and our indexes are rebuilt. So apart from this, our archive image copy also supports mixed mode transition. So that means if you have taken archive image copy in non-managed ACB environment, like in DBDlib or PSBlib environment, but your environment is upgraded in future to managed ACBs, then we archive image copy also supports this transition. So if it is migrated, then we have to run JNJSL step by specifying CVT to managed ACB, which is the keyword which is introduced, new keyword which is introduced, and this is the part of July 24 release. And then it generates all DDLs for your old DBD lib and PSB lib definitions for requested DBDs and PSBs, and recovery is done in the managed ACB environment. So whatever required for managed ACB environment, it would convert to DDLs for DVDs and PSBs, and you can run your recovery in managed ACB mode with this keyword. So this is the keyword, and it converts an image copy taken in DVDlib environment, then remains usable for recovery in IMS managed ACB environment. So as I explained earlier, so the valid values for this keyword is y and n. So if you specify y, then it would take the request, and if your image copy is taken in DBDlib environment, it would convert all artifacts which are required for managed ACB environment. So for example, converting to DDLs. That's it from my side. Any questions?
So Yogesh, for turning on managed DCB from backup and recovery products, do customer needs to do anything additional like using some keyword to make some GCA changes, or how it's going to be detected?
No, JCL changes are not required because if you specify either exit or proclib with DFS-DF parameter, it should be sufficient because in both ways you can enable your managed ACB.
So it's pretty much follow what our database utilities are following, right? In order to determine
That's
managed DCB, then
that's right,
read
Anshul.
it
Yeah.
appropriately. Okay. And also for archive image copy, like do anything special needs to be done if those jobs will be running in managed DCB, like, uh,
No, exactly
or
same
it
we
will
have to
follow the same
implement.
rules.
Yes.
Okay.
The same, either you can specify proclip with DFS-DF or you can specify exit routine. The only difference is in generated recovery JCL. So there we use ZDDL to populate the catalog. So if we see our generated JCL, it has ZDDL utility which we execute. So whatever DDL member which is generated for your requested DVD and PSB, it would execute that and populate your catalog.
Okay. Thanks, Yogesh.
So Anshul, would you like to talk about the next session that's coming up? Just a teaser.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So next session will particularly be targeted for BMC AMI data for IMS fastpath utilities. So we have different fastpath utilities, right? Like your reorg or your analyze, your extend, your unload, reload, change, extract. So all those utilities which can either be run in online mode or batch. So we are going to talk about uh, what is the philosophy that we follow. It's pretty much same as what database utilities follow, but there are subtle differences. So we'll be showcasing some of the jobs and showing some messages, and we'll take a couple of use cases. Let's say if you want to implement any DBD schema change, how it looks like in today's world when you are using ACB Live or DBD Live, and how it will look like in the future when managed DCB is the only option. So yeah, if you are interested in FastPath and if any way you are associated with the FastPath, you would be interested in attending that session, and that's on 7th of August, same time. So please do watch out for our invitation where you can register and subscribe for the third session.